Alert to Enterprise. Red alert.
What is it, Captain?
Cestus 3 has been destroyed.
Howdy, shipmates. It's Patrick again. Welcome back to the show that, well, I can't say that it never ends, but, you know, we're always here in spirit, or we try to be. All right, so today we are going to talk about, in case you didn't get it from the thumbnail, the Gorn. Our dear lizardy friends from, well, out there. So let's do the usual introductory, do all the YouTube things. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you really, really want to. Tell your friends, share the link with your friends. Anyway, we are going to be discussing the Gorn, some of their history, how to use them in your Star Trek Adventures game. That is that's the big thing for what we're doing today. So, without any further ado, so what do we know about the Gorn? Well, they have been known to Earth, at least by name, since the 2150s. And Orion Pirate related some information about the Gorn hegemony to Captain Archer, although he did not tell Captain Archer any particular specifics. But the first known encounter with the Gorn took place in the 2230s when the SS Puget Sound, a passenger liner colony ship, was taken out with all of its surviving crew and passengers placed on a Gorn hatchery planet, breeding planet. And we know this because the Gorn have a habit when they take prisoners like this. They will take the last survivor, put them in a lifeboat, and shoot them off into space. They're not expected to survive. It's just a gesture of respect. As it turns out, the last survivor of the SS Puget Sound was Laan Noonien Singh, the chief of security on the USS Enterprise. Hostilities between the Gorn hegemony and the Federation kind of remained on a slow simmer through most of the next couple of decades into the 2250s, when they started making some more aggressive moves against the Federation. There were several encounters, mostly with the USS Enterprise, culminating in a showdown at the planet Parnassus Beta. Gorn claimed they were in their territory, and Enterprise was basically ordered to stay on the other side of the line of demarcation, basically giving up the Federation colony that was on Parnassus Beta. Now, we don't know how this works out yet, because that was the part of the Season 2 season finale, with the dread "to be continued" at the end. We have reason to believe that things work out all right for most everybody, but we don't know for sure. And there's no genuine, real way to tell. All right. The next known encounter took place in 2267 when Captain James T. Kirk, now in command of USS Enterprise. I'm beginning to think the Gorn may have reason to take that particular ship personally. It keeps turning up. Anyway, the Enterprise encountered the Gorn at Cestus 3, where the Gorn had destroyed another Federation colony. Kirk had his famous duel with the Gorn captain during this encounter, and it turns out that there may have been actual provocation on the part of the Federation, and actual territorial disputes. Kirk famously had a duel with this charming fellow during the Cestus 3 incident, and it turns out that was a good chance that the Federation had, in actual fact, intruded on Gorn territory with the colony on Cestus 3. There may have been actual provocation. There's not a whole lot known about what goes on between then and the 24th century, although by the time of Lower Decks, there's at least one Gorn in Starfleet. Now, at least part of the confusion that exists with the Gorn stems from the fact that there's not just one Gorn species, at least within the game canon of Star Trek Adventures. There is, in fact, at least 3. 2 of them were named in the Beta Quadrant book. Here on page 71, those 2 are the Sesek and the Roost. And to Aaron Pollyea, who named them, I hope I didn't mangle those too badly. If I did, sorry, it's only going to get worse from here. Now, the Sesek, or the original Gorn that we met in Arena back in the original series, the Roost are the ones that appeared on Enterprise in the episode In a Mirror Darkly. And then we've got the ones that are appearing in Strange New World, which I have named the Sisk. I named them and I can't even pronounce it. Sisk. Yeah, it's going to be one of those videos, guys, because, lizards. What can you do? Anyway, the Sesek were the ones that originally appeared. They're the ones who appear to have maintained some dominance in the hegemony into the 24th century, because all the Gorn we see in Lower Decks are Sesek. You can tell by the googly eyes, but we'll get to that. Like I said, the Roost are the ones that we saw in Enterprise, and there's no reason to believe that they don't exist in the Prime universe, even though the only example we've ever seen is from the Mirror universe. And then you got the great big body horror Gorn. We'll be getting more into this in a little bit, but yeah. Now, one thing to remember about the Gorn is they may look like beasts. They may look like giant lizards, but they are remarkably intelligent beings. They are at least as technologically capable. Technologically capable. I will learn to talk. Honest to goodness, guys. Every bit as technologically capable as the Federation. I mean, their propulsion technology is generally considered to be of the push hard until it moves variety, but they have very sophisticated sensor technology. Some of their communications technology, they're able to very easily duplicate voices and fool other starships that way. They are armed primarily with disruptors, but that's because they're fairly simple weapons. And the Gorn are a lot of things, but they are not subtle. So subtle weaponry is not something they really lean into, but they've got excellent shields. Their ships can go at least as fast as a Constitution class, probably pretty comparable because they weren't able to get away in Arena. There are anecdotal tales of Gorn scientists who are extremely adept at terraforming and are considered extremely capable in that field with technology that rivals just about anything you're likely to find that isn't the Genesis device. All right, so for gaming purposes, since that's primarily why I'm here, the most up-to-date piece of character generation info for the Gorn is in the Lower Decks campaign guide. While all the 3 different species of Gorn all look kind of different, you can tell them apart fairly easily just by looking at them. They all would be using the same species template, which you can find on page 101 of the Lower Decks campaign guide. There was a little bit of errata involved with the species presented in the LD book, mostly to bring it in line with the other stat examples that are available in the books. Now, the Lower Decks book is a first edition book, and if you're playing first edition, this talent, Carnivorous Reptilian Physiology, that's a required talent. You have to take that as one of your talent slots when you're playing a Gorn. If you're playing second edition, that becomes the species ability. Now, if you don't happen to have the Lower Decks book, then you can find enough information to get things going in the Beta Quadrant book. On page 113, you will find a sidebar with the attribute modifiers and the trait. Now, there are not any specific talents or special rules shown for Gorn in the Beta Quadrant book. But if you go to the Alpha Quadrant book and go to page 116, you'll discover that there's a trait here, and it splits the just the basic Gorn trait into Sisek Gorn and Roost Gorn. By extension, you could also use Tsisk Gorn as a trait. And while there aren't any specific talents lined up, if you look at the Gorn NPCs that are in Alpha Quadrant on pages 121 and 122, you will notice that they all have a couple of special rules. Claws and reptilian skin. Now, both of these basic special rules are rolled into the carnivorous reptilian physiology talent that shows up in the lower Dex book. So for first edition, both of those special rules would get combined into a single mandatory talent. And if you're wanting to take them into second edition and you don't have the lower Dex book, then you would combine those into the species ability. Okay, now there are some differences to note with the various Gorn subspecies. From a game perspective, from game mechanics perspective specifically, they don't make that much of a difference. But for flavor and what you can do with them, rolling them into your game, this may be important. So let's take a look at these. And of course, we'll start where it all started, with the Sisek. Now, the Sisek are kind of what we consider the default Gorn, the true Gorn. Unless you want them not to be. But they're bigger than the Roost. They're smaller than the Tsisk. I will get through this. I will get through this. I will get through this. Average height, 2.2 meters. He didn't look that big on Arena, but they did their best to make him look pretty big and massive. While none of the Gorn are particularly quick that we've noticed, the Sisek may be slow even by Gorn standards. Their eyes. Bring that. No, I can't. Anyway, their eyes are like these multifaceted insect-like orbs. Their legs are plantigrade. That means they're humanoid. They walk on the soles of their feet. They do not have tails. This becomes important later, so there is some on-screen evidence, scant but in existence, that the Sisek Gorn are viviparous. They give birth to live young, often in large litters. While we didn't see it on screen in Star Trek Into Darkness, Dr. McCoy remarked about having to perform a cesarean section on a pregnant female Gorn, and then her octuplets tried to eat him, so they come out snapping. This is not entirely uncommon in the reptile world, but it is not. It's not what La'an Noonien Singh experienced. As further evidence, going back to lower decks, During the infamous Gorn wedding scene in the episode Veritas, we see the Gorn bride, and then we have the example art from the Lower Decks book itself. Both of these ladies have breasts, which is not a typical reptilian bodily feature. So there's a little bit more evidence that they give birth to live young. Then there are these guys. This is the Roost. Specifically, this is Slar, the overseer from the Atholians placed on the Defiant to get their slaves properly motivated. Of the three species that we know of, the Roost are probably the smallest. Figure probably about 2 meters. Their eyes are not the insectoid faceted eyes that the Sisek have. They're a bit quicker than the Sisek, although that may not necessarily be saying much. We don't know about their mating habits, but part of my supposition, which I'll get to later, is that they also bear live young. They are essentially velociraptors. They've got digitigrade legs, which means they're more dinosaur-like. They run around on their toes. There's no real information about how they reproduce, but like the Sisek, they do not have tails. And finally, we come to these guys, the Tsisk. Yeah, I'm going to say I'm pronouncing it right. Tsisk. I made it up. I will pronounce it however I think it needs to be pronounced. So there. Now these are some big boys. They are probably 3 meters tall. They are faster than the Sisek and slower than the Roost. Like the Roost, they have more normal reptilian type eyes. They also walk around on digitigrade legs, up on their toes, although, as I said, they're somewhat larger. Now, they're one of the big differences between them and the other two is that big old heavy-duty muscular tail. It can probably do a lot of damage if used in combat. And I say they're maybe 3 meters tall. That person that this guy is kind of tossing around, that's Spock from Strange New Worlds. This is an image from the episode Hegemony, which was the season 2 finale for Strange New Worlds. But yeah, that's he's probably 3 meters tall. He's got that tail. I don't want to mess with him. Now, the biggest difference between the Tsisk and the other two are how they reproduce. The Sisek and the Roost I believe are live births. These guys, on the other hand, are pure body horror. They reproduce by spitting egg venom, for lack of a better term, at their victims. That has the dual effect of partially blinding and slowing down the victim, and implanting eggs which burrow into the victim's body at a fairly quick rate, and then proceed to grow and reproduce. How long it takes depends on a number of factors, local temperatures, the physiology of the victim, but it doesn't take very long at all for them to get to a state where they're going to hatch, and you wind up with these darlings. Cute little buggers, aren't they? Just the kind of thing you want popping out of your body. Now, these immediately go into a frenzy. They will kill anything that gets in their way, including other Gorn younglings. But one of the reasons that there are so few survivors is that the actual birthing process is almost certainly fatal. And if they don't kill you by emerging from your body in a horde of in a horde of Gorn younglings, they'll hunt you down and try to eat you. The adults probably try to eat you too, which is why you generally only have one survivor that gets tossed into a lifeboat and then thrown back into space. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines hegemony as leadership or dominance, especially by one country or social group over others. And that is kind of what brings me to this last bit of the video, getting the Gorn involved in your game. Now, no matter what species of Gorn you're dealing with, they are observably xenophobic. They're very territorial. And their territory is not necessarily super well defined. It's better defined than the Tholians, for instance, but that's not necessarily saying a lot. What we do know is that they guard their territory fairly zealously, and they don't take intrusion lightly. They will gently warn you off once, maybe, and then they're going to come in guns blazing to let you know you've gone someplace where you should not have gone. Now, one of the things that I am considering using in my game is the notion that the Tsisk, they're not terribly particular about who they use as hosts for their eggs. And this does not please the Sisek or the Roost, because they would just as often as not use other Gorn as egg hosts. So the other two, unable to just go in and wipe them out as much as they probably wanted to, had to keep dealing with them. And they eventually, took this out into space. And since the Tsisk were targeting intruders and others that weren't part of the hegemony, but they weren't targeting other Gorn anymore. They were perfectly fine with that. Unfortunately, they started growing in numbers to a point where the Sisek and the Ruth are starting to get a little nervous. By the time of Strange New Worlds, I'm thinking, okay, we may have messed up here. And while it's good for expanding the hegemony's territory, the other two species are starting to worry about how they're going to get and maintain control and exercise their hegemony within the Gorn hegemony. I mean, any number of things could happen. I mean, we've seen a number of plots. If you want some nice alien, the movie, body horror, you can bring in the Tsisk. Any of the three could be used for starting some border skirmishes over whose territory is what. Occasionally, you might have one group coming to the players going, we need help against this other group over here before things get really ugly for both of us. I know that one of my friends on Discord, Alurka, thanks Alurka, noted that by the time frame of the Star Trek Online timeline, the Gorn had been conquered by the Klingons and were basically used for plausible deniability. You let the Gorn go and have their fun and get more territory for the Empire. But if it starts causing trouble, you just blame it on the hot-headed, cold-blooded reptiles. So, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do this. The biggest thing to remember, though, is not to play them as dumb monsters of the week. They are big, they are monstrous, they are scary, but they are wicked smart. You could also, play on the anecdotal evidence, and some of this comes from Beta Canon, about their ecological engineering expertise. You're trying to repair a world damaged by some kind of ecological disaster, and you call on the Gorn scientists to try and repair that damage. But there you have it. How to use the Gorn, how I had something I was going to say. I hate when this part of the video comes up because I'm never good at it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I appreciate you stopping by, as I always do. I can't thank you enough. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, again, do all the YouTube things. Live long and prosper. And I will see you on the next one. Have a good night. Bye-bye.